preparing to live stream the meeting. That's a good sign.
I see that it's streaming live now.
Okay. All right, and we're live. Great. This is Noreen at the Healthy Peaceful Podcast, and I'm here today. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm here today with Divya Alter, and we're going to start today. Hold on a second, because are you hearing a delay, Divya, on the talk?
No,
there's a bit of a.
I'm hearing you without a delay, but I think you're getting a delay.
I think we're going to have to skip the YouTube live if you don't mind.
Oh well, yeah.
I'm getting the delay. So I'm not astute enough to stop the delay. So we're going to go back to unlive. Sorry about that. I'm going to go out of YouTube. All right, hold on. Sorry about that. I don't know why there's a delay like that. Well, actually, it says live on YouTube. So let's try it. It's now that I'm back. Now that I close the YouTube window, it's saying live on YouTube. I'm going to hit the record. Just a moment for technical. So I think we're still on YouTube. This is great. Now I can actually hear and don't have that delay. Record to cloud. Okay. Wonderful. Well, we'll start again. This is Noreen with the Healthy Peaceful Podcast. And today I have a wonderful guest. I'm honored to have the opportunity to spend the hour with you, Divya Alter. And I'm just going to take a moment and read, just hit the highlights of Divya's bio. She is a certified nutritional consultant, currently in Manhattan, an educator and chef, and she's in the SK Ayurveda tradition, the Shakavansya, is that the
Shakavansya.
Vansya tradition. Her teacher was Vaidya Mishra. She is the co-founder of the culinary school Bhagavat Life, which is the only Ayurvedic culinary school in Manhattan. And they offer the first professional chefs training Ayurveda program in the United States. She's the author of the wonderful cookbook, What to Eat for How You Feel, the New Ayurvedic Kitchen, which was published in 2017. And it's now in its 7th printing. And my understanding is you also have a printing in German as well?
Yeah, it's actually the 8th printing now. I have to update my bio.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. That means it's really done well.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are also the co-founder, along with your husband, of the Manhattan restaurant in the East Village called Divya's Kitchen. And it is, I believe, the only Ayurvedic restaurant in New York City. So welcome to the Healthy Peaceful Podcast, Divya. That's quite a bio. And that's definitely fuel for a busy life. And I know Ayurveda, the operative word when I think of Ayurveda is balance. So how do you stay balanced, having so much on your plate?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. And I know you interviewed some of my favorite people and Ayurvedic chefs and book authors. And I just couldn't say no. I'm so honored that you have me on your podcast. Well, balance is it's a constant juggle, right? We need to keep ourselves kind of more or less in harmony with all the challenges that life presents at us. How do I keep my balance? I first of all try to keep my mind peaceful. And meditation and prayer and reading definitely helped me with that. And just spending time alone really helps me with that. And I think that, like, finding a quiet and peaceful space for our mind helps us stay more centered in our actions as well.
Awesome. So I know that when you started this journey many, many years ago, just from my reading, your teenage rebellion was joining a yoga ashram in Bulgaria, which is where you were from. So coming to meditation at a very early part of your life, that really must have been a common thread throughout the many years since you started in the science of yoga and studying yoga and Ayurveda.
Yeah, definitely. Meditation is like my anchor. you know, that's what keeps me from straying away from into the extremes. So
Wonderful.
I'm very grateful to have that in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. When you and I spoke, you've done a lot of interviews, and I've had the opportunity to watch and listen to many of them, and I've actually found them quite fascinating. And you've spent a good bit of time talking about your background, how you've come here. So I think today, instead of doing that, when you and I talked, we thought we'd jump right into Ayurveda in terms of its emphasis on combining foods, and also looking at a couple of common recipes that, you use the term in your book, instead of veganize, you use the term Ayurvedize. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation or not, but I like it.
I made up this word, yeah.
Okay.
Ayurvedize means adapting common recipes,
Sure.
applying the Ayurvedic principles to make them better for your health, better for your digestion.
Yes, and you bring up a good point when you mention digestion. I know that the Ayurveda, it's not always what you eat in Ayurveda that is emphasized, which is contrary to Western culture in terms of counting nutrients and calories and what you eat. But it really is about what you're able to digest. Could you comment on that?
Yes, so digestion is really the foundation of good health. If we digest our food properly, we're able to assimilate it, and that food can nourish every part of our body on a very deep level. And when we eat foods that is so easy for us to digest, it energizes us, and we feel like really revitalized after every meal. Then this kind of food really supports our health, and it doesn't make us sick. So, on the opposite, when we eat foods that are too heavy for us to digest, and digestion can also be impaired not just by what we eat, but also how we eat it. If you're just standing and just like like eating in a hurry and under stress, this will impair your digestion as well, even if it's good food. But sometimes the foods we eat could be too heavy for us to digest individually. It's not like something that's easy for me to digest may be too heavy for you to digest. So it depends on our strength of digestion. But when we eat foods that we don't digest fully, that semi-digested matter becomes like kind of like a sludge in the body, and it creates clogging. It can create also kind of the feeling of sluggishness and fatigue. But also, if this sludge stays in our body for a little too long, then it becomes very acidic and begins to ferment, and it creates the breeding ground for disease. So in Ayurveda, you can trace almost 85% of every disease, you can trace it back that it started with indigestion, which is really amazing.
That is. Yeah, and yeah, that really everything. Well, now I think that's really being validated in Western medicine because of the emphasis on the microbiome.
Yes, yes, that's one part.
So, if we can find, if we have the Western terminology and, bringing in now the gut-brain connection, and gut, and with lots of other things as well in the microbiome, that really, it's the validation of the ancient science in modern terms.
Yeah,
So
there is so much for modern science to discover, like to discover in terms of what Ayurveda has described thousands of years ago. There's still a lot of discoveries to be made, and I look forward for them to be validated because they really work. I mean, I apply them to myself and they work.
yeah, and the other thing I find I liked about your cookbook is, you call it the new Ayurvedic kitchen. So, um, meaning that it is the ancient wisdom and the principles are universal, but this is a cookbook for modern times. I think that also relates to some of the things that I heard on other interviews that you've done when you describe your teacher, Vaidya Mishra, and how he adjusted Ayurveda for the Westerner, that he wasn't having results when initially, I think the specific thing was relating to EMTs, or other things as well, that there's a different protocol for a Western, somebody living in a modern Western culture versus, what the Ayurvedic text described are going to work. So I think that really relates as well.
Yeah, well, this is again the point of suitability and adjusting according to time, place, and circumstance. I always see Ayurveda as a living tradition. By definition, Ayurveda asks us to always select foods for our diet, activities for our lifestyle, and the environment we live in, to select according to what's suitable for our health. And this changes with time. So Ayurveda is not some kind of ancient science that worked 5,000 years ago. No, by definition, Ayurveda means adapting so the principles never change, but we always adapt the details to work for our current time, place, and circumstances. So that's the idea. And I think once somebody understands that this is the practice of Ayurveda, then you can practice it anywhere in the world. So when it comes to foods, for example, the Ayurvedic texts describe fruits and vegetables and lentils and grains in great detail, but these are the kind of foods that grew in that particular area where the writers of Ayurveda lived, and they examined and studied these foods. Now, does it mean that I live in New York and I have to eat all of these foods to feel balanced? No, I have to select local foods. So they explain that eat locally grown food, but then always think about your digestion when you're cooking, when you're combining the ingredients. So these are the principles. Always eat for your digestion, but then you would select, you adapt, or you would make the food suitable to the place you're in, the season, the time of day, and the condition of your health. So you have to always make these adjustments, personalize them, customize them. And that's what I love about Ayurveda is you can practice it anywhere in the world. When you go to Morocco, you're not going to eat Bulgarian foods, you're going to eat Moroccan
Right.
foods. But
Yeah.
you can apply the principles of
Mm.
compatibility, digestion,
Mhm.
sit down, like how you eat your food, apply those principles, and this is how you can practice Ayurveda anywhere in the world.
Sure. Yeah, that's beautiful. And those words are wonderful as well. Suitability and, really personalized. And if you have a student coming to your school, Bhagavat Life, for the first time, um, and they've heard about Ayurveda perhaps through yoga or, um, other vehicles, but what is the first thing for them to think about? Because anytime you're becoming immersed. And even though there's some universal principles, some people can easily get overwhelmed, and we really want them to start feeling some benefits so that they're inclined to want to go deeper. What's important for them to start with?
You mean in the context of food or lifestyle, or with
Really anything, because Ayurveda is diet, lifestyle, it's a comprehensive healthcare system, but particularly food, because that's your specialty.
What I would suggest is, first of all, learn to listen to your body. Like, try to really understand, like, take a moment to connect with yourself every morning. And more, it can be more times during the day, but connect with yourself to really truly ascertain your needs. So, because when you feel like, how do you feel right now? Do you feel tired and depleted? Do you feel really charged and you need something to cool down? So determining how you feel in the moment, like listening to your body and figuring that out, this will help you make the right decision. Excuse me. In terms of food, in terms of the time of exercise, do you need to get more rest or not, and all that. So that's always the first step. In our stressful lifestyle, we tend to disconnect ourselves from, we kind of go on autopilot.
Absolutely.
And we just do things automatically, the same breakfast every single day, and we kind of disconnect, and we almost feel like we're not ourselves. We we just go through the motions. So really centering and presencing ourselves, and and just like stay. And that's why I love meditation, because it helps me connect with myself, center myself, and then from that place, determine, even this is where you can also get good determination to live a healthier lifestyle, to eat a healthier diet. If you're just going on autopilot, it's very hard to make changes.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Thank you. Sorry for that noise. Talking about, I'm going to switch my mic for a moment. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, thinking about some common American foods that are considered healthy, some common dishes like oatmeal in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
How would you take a dish like that and turn it into a balancing Ayurvedic dish?
Yeah, well, that's an easy one. Thank you for starting with an easy
Sure,
one.
we'll start and move from there.
Well, first of all, I would examine the quality of the oats. So if you're eating quick oats, they increase your blood sugar much faster. So I would recommend switching to rolled oats or steel cut oats. I personally cut my oats. I have a grain mill that I can stone cut my oats. So that's even better than steel cut. But first of all, make sure that you're eating good quality oats. And I prefer them organic because the non-organic usually have a lot of pesticides. So that will be the first start. That's like the main ingredient of the dish. And then oats, I would think, okay, so nutritionally speaking, oats, very high in protein. They're one of the highest grain in protein. So because of that, it's heavy to digest. Have you eaten oatmeal and it kind of eats heavy? It feels heavy in your stomach sometimes?
Definitely, yeah, yeah.
So because of that, I want to help my stomach digest it better, and I would use spices. So Ayurveda uses spices not just to create exquisite flavors, but every spice has specific role in digestion. Certain spices help digest protein, and one of them is green cardamom. Black cardamom also, but the more common green cardamom pods. So I usually use 4 whole cardamom pods for a serving of oatmeal. And I would just add them. And the way I usually do it, the way I've learned from Vaidya Mishra also, you can add it to boiled water, but you can also toast it in ghee or coconut oil or even olive oil, and then add the water after that. And just toast it,
So
becomes a little crisp.
you toast the oats or you toast the cardamom?
You can start toasting the spices. So
Okay.
another spice I would add is cinnamon stick.
Sure.
Because the cinnamon stick helps us break down sugars and transform them into energy instead of fat. And it also regulates the blood sugars. And it's very tasty as well.
Of course, yes.
I would add cardamom and cinnamon stick, toast those first, then add the oats, toast them a little bit, then add the water. And I usually cook the oatmeal in water. And if I wanted to add, usually dairy milk is very heavy to digest with oats. If I'm really, really hungry and I need to eat something heavy, I would use dairy milk. Otherwise, if I want to use milk, I'll probably use almond milk because it's a little lighter. But you don't have to add any milk to it. And then I like to add a little bit of saffron, like a pinch of saffron threads, because saffron is it's kind of a heating, cooling spice. It has both effects, and it helps with digestion as well. And it makes a very nice light hue of yellow to the oatmeal, but it just helps you digest it. So these are the spices.
Well, it's a beautiful, has a beautiful fragrance as well.
Yes, and it has many medicinal properties. Now, for sweeteners, I like to sweeten my oatmeal with dry fruit. Like I like to add raisins. I like to add chopped dried apricots or dates or figs. Like I would use chopped dried fruit, and I put those in the beginning of cooking so they can rehydrate during and become soft. And what else? So usually, I mean, a lot of people eat their oatmeal with raw fruit on the side, or sprinkle some fresh berries on top, or pour some cold milk on top. So fresh berries and cooked food, they become hard to digest because raw fruit and cooked food digest differently in the stomach. So the stomach kind of becomes confused. So if you wanted to add berries, I would recommend cooking them and add them in the last 5 minutes of cooking the oatmeal.
Sure. So that so the entire dish is cooked.
Yes. And it's absolutely delicious. You could add an apple to your oatmeal if you like a chopped diced apple.
Nice. And is there a reason that you do you prefer the dried fruit in the oatmeal versus fresh fruit, or?
Well, the dry fruit is a little sweeter. I just use it as a sweetener instead of adding. You could also, of course, at the end of cooking, you can pour a little bit of maple syrup to it, or you could add honey. But honey, that's a compatibility practice. Ayurveda does not recommend heating honey, because when you heat honey, it changes its molecular structure and its action on the body, and it can create a toxic side effect. So that's why if you wanted to add honey to your oatmeal, let it cool down until it's ready for you to eat it, because you cannot eat it boiling hot, right? So you cool it down a little bit until you're ready to eat it, and then you can sweeten it with honey.
Okay, beautiful. The other recipe we talked about was a smoothie. There's there's smoothie shops in Manhattan, everywhere else. There's and everybody's trying to get all of their nutrients, and that's the whole idea, is to, you don't have to eat anything else the whole day, just eat a couple of smoothies.
Yeah, just put everything in, blend it up, and
then you can just check them off on the chronometer that you met your nutrient needs.
Yeah, I know. I really hope that we kind of, I feel that our culture is slowly fading away from the smoothie in the morning or smoothie all day.
Well, I think water bottles are like that too. You know, if in Europe, you don't see people walking around. In the US, you always see people walking around with water bottles. But you don't see that in other countries. So I'm not sure if smoothies are unique to the US or if they're all over. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, smoothies are enjoyable once in a while, but
Yeah,
you don't want to, you need to chew your food, you know.
sure.
So chewing is very important because actually digestion begins with mixing the food with the saliva. Saliva has digestive enzymes.
Mhm.
It also signals the brain, we experience the taste. So if you quickly drink a smoothie, you're kind of fully connecting the brain to the gut, so to say. So we need to chew our food. That's why it's important to not just have liquefied food, and unless you have some kind of disease that you cannot chew. But chewing is very important part. So don't drink everything. Don't eat your food completely blended for every meal. I enjoy a smoothie once in a while. Now the problem with smoothies is that people usually think, oh, I need some potassium. Let me add a banana, also for sweetness and texture to make it more creamy. Oh, I need some minerals and need some greens. Let me add some kale and spinach and whatever greens I have in the fridge. Of course, they're raw. And then, oh, I need some celery because I heard that celery is really good for your body and it's alkalizing, and let's add that.
Right.
And
Well, I know celery juice is big.
I know, but again, don't drink celery juice all the time because then it would. You may have be have acidity, and then you drink the celery juice, you feel good. But if you keep drinking it nonstop, it will over alkalize your body, and then you're in trouble.
Yeah,
So everything in moderation,
sure.
it's important. So the way we think about smoothies is like what nutrients I want to have, but it doesn't work that way for digestion. So it's always important to combine things that are easy to digest, and leafy greens, and that's like modern nutrition proven, is leafy greens are best digested when you cook them, especially if you saute them in a little bit of oil, and then you can blend them after that. So you can I'm a big fan of more like a soup type of smoothie rather than raw smoothie, because also all these raw smoothies, especially with leafy greens, they cause a lot of vata imbalance. So vata is the air and space elements in the body that are very cold and mobile. And if you eat a lot of green smoothies, you may get constipated. So having a smoothie is a very easy way to fall into the trap of incompatibility. So you can
Sure.
have incompatibility of the level of taste, or the metabolic effect. Some foods are heating, they increase heat in your liver and your body. Some foods are more cooling. So sometimes when you have like one food that's very cooling, like coconut, is very, very cooling for the body. And then you have one food that's very heating, like flax seeds, and you mix those together in one smoothie, then they start fighting on the level of metabolic effect. So creates confusion in the body.
Right. Well, you bring up a principle of Ayurveda, and that is the energetics of food. That the rasa, the virya, the vibhak, essentially I think is it the virya, the heating and the cooling effect
Yes,
of
that's
food?
the potency metabolic effect. Yes.
So Ayurveda looks at all of those things in terms of whether the ingredients are compatible.
Yes.
So if you were to design a smoothie, let's just say it's in the summer season, because I don't know why you'd have a smoothie in any other season, or it's the most appealing in the summertime. What would be a beautiful smoothie that really would be suitable for all the doshas, or you could adjust it slightly for vata, pitta, or kapha?
Yeah. Well, let me give you an example of a very common bad combination as a
Sure.
smoothie or shake. So the strawberry milkshake.
Okay.
It's delicious. I mean, you blend strawberries and milk, sometimes heavy cream, and we put some heavy cream on top, add some ice cream to make it extra tasty and creamy, and then add some vanilla, and you blend all this. So strawberries are sour by taste. They're predominantly sour. Even if they're very ripe and sweet, they still have a lot of sourness in them, right? So then milk and cream and ice cream, we're talking about dairy milk. These are very sweet ingredients. So sour and sweet, just like when you make paneer cheese, when you boil the milk and you add something sour, it curdles.
Sure.
And it turns into cheese, fresh
Right.
cheese.
It's culturing it,
Right.
essentially. Yeah.
So when you blend strawberries with ice cream and milk, dairy milk, and add some heavy whipped cream, it may not curdle when you blend it, but it will really fight in your stomach, and you will feel either very heavy after you have this, or you may feel almost like nauseous, depending on what's going on with your digestion, or you may feel so tired you just want to take a nap afterwards. So that's a very good example of incompatibility or improper food combinations. So anything sour with milk or heavy cream, like this is not yogurt. We're not talking about yogurt and cheese. We're just talking about milk with something sour. So the way I make my strawberry milkshake, because I love the combination, especially during the strawberry season.
Sure. Yeah.
It's so comforting, and
It is.
it's so nice. It reminds me of my childhood.
Absolutely.
So I would use almond milk or cashew milk, or
Okay.
like sunflower milk if you have nut allergies. I wouldn't use coconut milk because coconut milk is really, really heavy. So and it's very cooling. I would have coconut milk more in the summer, like the hot summer, but not so much when strawberries are in season.
Right.
So it's really delicious with almond milk.
Okay.
So you use that as a base, and I like to use dates as a sweetener. And they also add a little bit of creaminess to it. They don't change color much. And I would use the vanilla, but I would also add a couple of pinches of ground cardamom seeds.
Okay.
Because again, that will help digest a little bit of protein and the heaviness of the almond milk. So, and it's absolutely delicious. And
That sounds delicious.
It's like liquid ice cream. It's really good.
Oh, sure, especially with the cardamom as well.
Yes.
And is the almond milk not going to have the same kind of incompatibility or curdling that you're going to get from dairy milk?
No, so seed and nut milks are okay to combine with fruit.
Okay.
But not the dairy milk.
All right. Wonderful.
Could be also not just cow's milk, it also like goat milk will have the same effect, negative effect.
Yeah. Okay. So not just cow's milk, but really goat or sheep's milk as well.
Yes.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, I like the fact that there's a delicious option available.
Yeah, so once you learn the principles, then you can always find a substitute. And that's what I do all the time. I always, if I like a recipe, and like for our restaurant, we have lasagna with bechamel sauce.
That I was going to ask you about that looks like a fabulous recipe with broccolini.
Yes.
Wow. So tell me about the bechamel and kind of just describe the typical bechamel and then what you do instead, and how is what you're doing Ayurvedically sound and the other creating problems?
Well, I mean, you're a trained chef, Noreen, so why don't you tell me how you were trained to make the bechamel sauce?
Well, I attended to the Natural Gourmet, which was essentially vegan. But anyway, my understanding with the bechamel is not something that I cook myself very much, but essentially you make a roux with the butter and flour, and then you add milk or cream. You thicken the roux, and then you're stirring and whisking until you just bring it up to just before a boil, essentially. So it's a very simple sauce, but quite rich, and it's one of the basic French sauces.
Yes, exactly. And it's really delicious. But how do you season it?
I don't remember the seasonings per se, but salt, of course.
Yeah, so definitely salt to it, right?
Yeah. And I think there might be a little bit of nutmeg too, or
yes.
there could be, yeah.
Yeah, depending on what you're making.
Sure.
So so that's one thing, that milk or cream, and we're just talking about milk and cream, not yogurt and cheese. So milk
Sure.
or cream with anything salty, salt, seaweed, like anything that's salty, are very incompatible. They actually cause a lot of they can cause, if you eat this a lot, you're making creamy soup and you add some heavy cream to it, and then you season it with salt. Then this makes, if you eat like a lot of this kind of incompatibility, adding salt to dishes with milk or cream, it can really cause chronic skin problems. And I've seen like Ayurvedic doctors show pictures of people who kind of habitually, they've eaten that for a long time, and they develop really serious skin conditions. So if you're having like a skin rash that doesn't go away, check if you're combining like a milk, or it could be just milk in your coffee or your chai or something like that.
Sure, sure.
With, if you're eating it together in one meal with something that has salt in it.
Okay.
And when we talk about, so this brings me to another point. When we talk about food compatibility, it's not just combining ingredients in one dish. It's about, you're looking at the whole meal, because when you eat it, it all goes in the stomach and it has to digest at the same time, right? So if you have salt in one dish and then milk in another dish, and you're eating them in one sitting, then this can cause incompatibility for digestion.
Okay.
So the way I make my bechamel,
Yeah.
just finish
And
it.
is this the recipe that you use in your restaurant?
Yes, and it's also in my cookbook, What to Eat for How to Eat.
Sure.
And the so I use nut-based milk. That's all I do. Just the only switch, and I don't use heavy cream. It's not necessary. It becomes written.
Yeah.
Instead of butter, I use cultured ghee, because butter is much heavier. It's really heavy. Cultured ghee is much lighter, and I reduce the fat a little bit.
Okay.
Because again, I don't want to make it too heavy. I want people to really enjoy it. It has the consistency and the taste of bechamel. But after you eat it, like after you eat the lasagna, and we serve like really like big pieces like this. People always say, this is massive. But you'll be surprised that you can actually finish eating it in one go and not feel heavy afterwards.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I think the fact that you're offering beautiful food that's, filling, delicious, and there's no feeling of deprivation.
Oh, no, not for sure. You're very satiated and full, and you feel really nourished, but you don't feel heavy in your stomach. And that's the benefit of eating compatible foods. Your body will be like, yay, I can work on this. I can manage this.
And you can actually enjoy having lasagna.
Yes.
I mean, many of us who haven't been able to digest lasagna essentially have just given it up, So that's what I think is really awesome. And you mentioned cultured ghee, and I did read that you, number one, at the restaurant, you make your own butter.
Yes. And we make our own ghee.
That's really amazing. Do you want to just describe what cultured ghee is and how it, well, it's essentially made from cultured cream, you're mixing yogurt. Yeah. Why is that more beneficial than, why do you use that versus really using uncultured butter?
Yes, I mean, the common butter is the sweet butter, right?
Sure.
So you just take heavy cream and you churn it, and it turns into butter.
Yeah.
And you can cook this into ghee. Now, Ayurveda speaks about two main types of ghee. So that's one of them. Yeah. And then when you take the cream and culture it, you kind of turn it into cream. You culture it the way you make yogurt. You turn the cream into cream yogurt. You ferment it. So the fermentation itself transforms the lactose in the cream into it just transforms. There is no more lactose. So that becomes much easier to digest. And when you churn that cultured cream into butter, that butter is much lighter. So it has it's lighter in terms of fat, and cholesterol. It's still heavy because it's butter. It has all the proteins in it.
Sure.
So when you cook that butter into ghee, then the cultured ghee is much lighter. It's a lighter fat. It doesn't feel, because regular ghee can kind of, I shouldn't call it regular. I should call it like uncultured ghee, I guess.
Sure. Uncultured.
So that ghee is much heavier, and it's more fattening also. It actually helps you build fat tissue if you need to do that. The cultured ghee does the opposite. If you need to clean and reduce your fat tissue, the cultured ghee will help you with that. So it's a very light fat. It travels very easily in the body. It doesn't get stuck. It's easy to digest. And it's also much higher compared to the other ghee. It's much higher in butyric acid. It's really one of the top foods on the planet, highest in butyric acid, which is essential for nourishing the microbiome that we talked about, nourishing the friendly bacteria in the gut. So it's one of the best, cultured ghee is one of the best foods to heal leaky gut. It really helps to heal, like to seal the lining of the gut. So we make this at Divya's Kitchen. We have a little product production. We have a big butter churner, and we culture organic grass-fed cream, and we cook it into ghee. We try to do this around the full moon because it's also good to make ghee on the full moon. We have to do it more often though, but we make it always in small batches, and you can purchase it on our website, diviskitchen.com/shop. And I wanted to tell you, we're offering 15% off discount promo code to everybody, to all of our listeners. You can use it for your first purchase at Divya's Kitchen to try our products. We have a few more.
That's wonderful. Do they need a certain particular code? Just Divya's Kitchen is the code?
No, the code for your listeners, our listeners for this podcast will be Healthy Peaceful 15.
Okay, Healthy Peaceful 15. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that. Would you consider cultured ghee a superfood?
For sure, yes.
Yeah.
It's so nourishing. And see, when you eat with cultured ghee, you're satiated with less food. You actually don't need to eat large portions. If you eat and chew and just presence yourself with the food, especially when you cook it with cultured ghee, you're fully satisfied with less amount of food. And the cultured ghee also helps bring the nutrients down to the deepest levels of tissues and cells to nourish them.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect. Is Ayurveda is very much about in the assimilation of nutrients, these carriers that can bring the nutrients actually into the tissues, and ghee is really really critical for that. So,
yes,
yeah,
exactly.
that's,
And also spices. So a lot of spices do that. They're like vehicles, as you said. They carry, they help carry the small broken down nutrients to where they're supposed to go. And this is how we experience deep nourishment. A lot of us eat all kinds of foods, and they're not bioavailable to our body, and just we always feel that something is missing. You may be eating organic, really healthy food, but if you're not digesting it properly, it doesn't become bioavailable to you, so you're not getting the nourishment, the deep nourishment from that food.
yeah, I love that term, deep nourishment. And I think also that without that deep nourishment, there's a tendency toward food cravings, unhealthy cravings.
Yeah, you always feel
Because-
something is missing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just not satisfied. So that's really wonderful. Yeah, let's see. Now, your cuisine that you have at Divya's Kitchen and your cookbook is really not only Ayurvedic, but it's Satwik cuisine.
Yes.
So could you tell our listeners, viewers, a little bit about what Satwik cuisine is, and specifically what ingredients you don't use when you're cooking sattvically?
So Satwik is a term in yoga, in Ayurveda, in Sanskrit. So sattva, it's very hard to translate sattva in one word.
Of course,
It's
yeah.
one of those Sanskrit words that's really hard to translate in one word. And in general, Satwik energy, anything that carries Satwik energy, it could be food, it could be music, it could be space, anything in nature carries different types of energy. Some energies is Satwik, and they're the kind of energy that really brings balance and harmony. So like when you enter into a room that's beautifully lit and clean and it smells nice, and you enter and you just feel really enlightened and your mind is peaceful and you kind of feel like you're expanding almost. So that's the Satwik energy.
Yeah.
And then opposed to that is Rajasic energy, which sometimes is translated as passionate. But so Rajas is the energy of transformation, of motion, of getting things happen, you know, like the push. So this is a very stimulating energy. And even the kind of music, you know, compare Bach to rock and roll, you know.
Sure, a rap or
Different vibrations. So Rajasic foods also are more stimulating foods, and we need them sometimes when you want to really get a kick and get really charged. But there is also the Tamasic energy, which has an effect on the mind that creates more lethargy, depression. Like it kind of creates the platform for the dark thoughts to linger.
Yep.
It's like that's like the room that's kind of dark and really dirty and it smells so bad. And so there are foods that are more tamasic, like putrefied foods, like meat falls into this category, and or mushrooms. So like there's certain foods that have this more lethargic, more how to say, like more like a covering energy, opposed to Satwik, which is more like uplifting, opening, broadening, balancing, harmonizing kind of energy.
Okay.
So in Satwik cooking, we usually avoid very stimulating foods like onions and garlic for daily use. Like we would use them, let's say you're sick and you have specific conditions where garlic, for example, can be very medicinal for you to use in a specific amount for a particular time until you get better. But garlic is overly stimulating for the mind. So especially for people who like to do yoga and meditate and develop inner peace. So the energy of garlic goes against that.
Beautiful. So really, you're really looking at the energetics of food, both from a physical standpoint and for mental clarity as well.
Yeah, so the vibrational effects, the
Yeah.
energetic vibrational effects. And see, what I love about Ayurveda is that it always addresses not just the physical influence, but also the very subtle vibrational influence. And like garlic can be tremendous for your physical body, but on the more subtle levels, it can cause kind of like Vaidya Mishra used to call it, like it can kind of cover the gem of your soul, whatever that means. So it has more of a, on a subtle level, it can have more of a covering effect. So some people may think, oh, this is nonsense. I eat garlic and I'm so healthy. And yeah, you can definitely be very healthy, especially if you're not pitta predominant, like very fiery. And if you're very fiery, garlic will overly stimulate it. You might be the kind of person that's overly have really big temper and explodes, and because that's what garlic does, right? It's very stimulating.
Sure.
But for some people, it can be very balancing. It can make you healthy physically, but not necessarily open the gates to higher spiritual understanding, so to say.
Yeah, no, well, that's wonderful. I know in Ayurveda, an example of a tamasic food would be leftovers.
Yeah, it depends also.
And it depends on the food. So generally, Ayurveda suggests having fresh food. Could you talk about that, and what are the reasons for having fresh food and for you essentially cooking the food for that particular meal, or at least that day?
Yeah. So when we talk about food compatibility, freshly prepared food, like you prepare the food and you eat it within, yeah, immediately is great, but maybe not more than an hour or two. Ideally, not more within 4 hours. So that's the kind of the threshold for leftover.
Okay.
But we're talking about cooked food, especially food cooked in oil.
Yeah.
So it's just because food is much more suitable for our absorption, digestion, deep nourishment when we eat it freshly prepared. When you cook the food, especially if you cook it with a fat, any kind of cooking fat, and then you refrigerate it, and that fat usually solidifies depending on the fat you're using, and then you reheat it. Reheating that cooked food in fat makes it very hard to digest. So that's why it becomes incompatible to your body, because it can weaken your digestive fire, your agni, as the Sanskrit word for digestive fire. So your body has to work extra hard to digest the leftover.
Okay.
And for somebody, a lot of us nowadays, there's so many people, I mean, millions and millions of people struggle with digestive issues. So many of us have some kind of digestive issue. So it means that our digestive system is compromised. So the more leftovers you eat, the harder it will be for you. It will weaken your digestive system. It'll be harder for you to digest. And how do you know? You eat leftovers, and instead of feeling invigorated, you feel tired, because your body has to spend a lot more energy to break that food down.
Yeah. I find that's a really tough one. Even people who are interested in nutrition and really are very careful about what they eat in terms of organic. But when you try to, when I talk with them about leftovers, they just don't buy into it. So I was wondering, have you had those kind of communications with students, or? So I don't, it doesn't make sense to be argumentative about it. Is there a better approach? I mean,
I think it's one of the faults of American culture, because we're just constantly bombarded in TV shows, in cookbooks. People actually, the media and the culture encourages us to use leftovers. And this is what you can do with this leftover, and this is what you can do with that leftover. Leftovers also make us gain weight much faster. So that's another downside of leftovers.
Well, that might be a selling point.
Yeah, but that's the American culture. You go to other cultures, like in India, it's so much part of the culture to cook freshly cooked meals.
Sure.
I mean, when I lived in India in a small village, I saw families that didn't have a refrigerator. They will get fresh vegetables, cook them, and by the end of the day, all the fresh food was used, and next day you repeat. So there was no need of refrigeration.
Right. So it's really culture dependent.
Yes. So I think I also think it's important to be open-minded, and especially when you're struggling with your health, try different things. Be open-minded and try things that might really work for you and help you.
Well, I think that's a good point, is if you are having health issues or challenges, is if there's a suggestion that may work, why not?
Yeah.
And
So,
a simple one like don't eat leftovers.
exactly. Yeah. So in terms of incompatible foods, the people who will be the least affected and they will feel the least reactions to incompatible foods will be those who are young.
Right. Yes, of course.
Strong digestion. They're very active. They have very strong metabolism, very high
Sure.
metabolism. And people who eat spicy foods, because the spices often balance incompatible foods.
Right.
So, but if you're struggling with the health issues, then you will be the most affected to eating incompatible foods, including leftovers.
Yeah. So you make a good point that while these are parameters, these are principles, if the impact is really dependent on the strength of your digestion.
Yeah, and how old you are. And
Right.
if you exercise a lot, you'll be able to balance that incompatibility.
Sure. Yeah.
But just to give you an example, still incompatible foods can come at a price. So one of the doctors I'm studying with, he's a medical doctor and Ayurvedic doctor working in a hospital in India. And he was giving an example, like a clinical study. He had a patient who was in his 20s, athlete, like runs every day. And he ended up with a stroke in his 20s because he had a soft blood clot. And so the doctor was trying to figure out, like, tell me what you eat, because like all the tests came, there was nothing wrong with him when they did all the tests. So he said that he was having yogurt and banana smoothie every day. These two foods, yogurt and banana, very hard to digest when they're together, and they
Right.
cause clotting. They can cause blood clots.
Right.
So so that, and he survived the stroke.
Wow, they can actually cause, they're so incompatible that they can clot the blood.
And this is a person who is young, who is very active, with very high metabolism, and still he couldn't fully break down, and the smoothie caused a blood clot. So everybody is different, but my point is that don't take it for granted. If you're young and strong, don't take it for granted, because there will come a time when you will feel like, oh wow, I used to eat and enjoy this, but I don't feel good when I eat this anymore. So that means, yeah, you're getting older, but also your digestive system is getting weaker.
Sure, yeah. Well, taking care and taking time with your health is makes a lot of sense regardless of age, there's no doubt. Um, let's see. I know you're working on a new cookbook. And is it focused on ingredients and the properties of ingredients?
Yes, yes.
Can you speak a little bit about that?
So yes, my new cookbook will be Ayurvedic cooking according to ingredient. We don't have a title yet,
Okay.
but that's the premise of the book, and I'm very excited because it will really, like, we know so much about ingredients from a modern nutrition point of view, but the Ayurvedic text gave us very detailed explanations, especially for some foods that are also still available for us today, about the attributes, the predominant taste. Is it heating? Is it cooling? What are the general actions of these foods, and when you should eat them, when you should not eat them? What is their season? So I explain ingredients from an Ayurvedic point of view, and then give you a few recipes for each ingredient. So you can really enjoy good recipes, but also learn more about the ingredients, so that you'll be more empowered to make your own selections for
Beautiful.
foods that are good for your diet.
Yeah. Well, you actually did a wonderful job with your existing cookbook with highlighting a particular spice. I think it was mostly the spices in particular dishes, and then really going through the properties of that particular spice.
Yeah, rice, and also some vegetables, and yeah.
Some vegetable, maybe some particular vegetables as well. So, and I really enjoyed that aspect of your cookbook.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know that you've been on a number of different panels and discussions with really traditional chefs. I think I was reading, or maybe I heard, maybe you said it on an interview. You were on a panel with Karen Page, who's who's a writer.
Yeah, she looks forward to my book.
Yes, and Daniel Boulad, and you bought his cookbook and read it in 2 days. I think that's what I read. So you appreciate fine food, because many people who are, even chefs who are interested in natural health and natural healing, don't necessarily cross over. So I'm getting the sense that you appreciate the passion that more fine dining chefs or chefs in other avenues, what they give to their ingredients and what to give to their food. Could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, how, because you have a greater awareness, I'm feeling, than many chefs who are, let's say, natural food chefs. So maybe speak a little bit about that, or what your impression is there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have great respect for everybody who is in the food industry, because it's a really hard work. It's not easy.
Oh, it is
Not easy to be.
one of the hardest places. There's no
And
doubt.
I appreciate the art and the passion
Yeah.
that each chef brings to the table, and the creative process. And I often appreciate their personalities. I rarely can prepare their recipes, because it's just not the way I eat or
Sure.
I choose to eat.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate the thought process and the creativity and the passion. And so that's and I am a big fan of Chef Daniel Boulud. He's wonderful. The book that I read, that I got from him, was Letters to a New Chef. Book.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a really, really good book. So anybody who wants to get into cooking,
Will
chef, food service,
will it scare the budding chef away, or?
Oh no, it's just the opposite.
Really?
So
Okay.
it's written in a very loving, compassionate, and also very realistic voice. So
I'll have to read that.
Yeah. So again, the art, we have to preserve the culinary art. And I think more and more chefs are opening to the notion of culinary medicine, in the sense of having, using food, also understanding the medicinal benefits of food, and using it not just for pleasure to enjoy a meal, but also to create a very healing effect with the food that you present for days to come after. So it's like, it's not just the enjoyment during the meal, but how do you feel? How would your client, guest feel after, like, eating your meal, your food, hours and days after that? So that's always my focus. And I just hope, I mean, even with our current culinary training, we have professionally trained chefs who are taking the training, because they're not so interested in, they know the techniques,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
They have the knife skills.
Yeah.
They have the organization skills for working in a commercial professional kitchen or doing private chef work. But they really want to learn about using food as medicine, by understanding the qualities, the ingredients, on a very deep level, like really the deep effect that each ingredient has on our body.
Right. That's beautiful. And I know
Ayurvedic.
you have a professional chef's training program at your cooking school. It's at.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, because of the pandemic, so we always had to do it in a small class, just 12 students, over 8 months in person in New York. We did this for 4 years. And then with the pandemic, all of a sudden we cannot do live classes for a while. So we divided the training into 2 levels. And the first one is foundations. And it really equips you with all the knowledge and basic skills to become an Ayurvedic cook at home, just to cook for your friends and family.
And how long is that course?
So we started at the beginning of December, and we're ending at the end of March. So it's about 4 months.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's almost every week. We have breaks on certain weekends. Yeah, the class sold out, and we're starting a new semester in spring, and that's sold out. We actually have a wait list.
That's awesome. And is this appropriate? This is really appropriate for the home cook as well as professional.
Yes, because see, like we noticed also with the first 4 years of our Ayurvedic nutrition and culinary training, that a lot of people are not interested in cooking professionally.
Yeah.
It's really hard work, but a lot of people, they were like even retired people who were retired from work and took the training because they really want to learn how to cook for themselves and their family. So the foundations level gives you that platform. And then if you want to build on top of that and really learn a lot more professional skills in terms of food costing, kitchen organization,
Sure.
equipment, and so
It,
many writing
it,
recipes and all that.
is it also a course that might be appropriate for people who are in alternative healing professions?
Yeah.
And, now they have this, it's an opportunity for them to learn hands-on the principles and to really, I think with hands-on, the nice thing about cooking is it is hands-on, so that it's not merely book knowledge,
Yeah, put it to practice in the kitchen. Yes.
Yeah, so they have that opportunity. So have you been surprised by some of your students who have come to the course that by their various professions, any surprises that?
Well, half of our students with this training and also the upcoming training, they're already trained Ayurvedic practitioners.
Okay.
But they receive very little training about the actual, like going deep into food and the actual cooking.
Yeah, I would say very, very good for Ayurvedic practitioners.
We also have medical doctors taking out training because
that's awesome.
Yeah, they really want to learn how to guide their clients or patients. And help them really personalize their diet and guide them, because it's not just about taking medicine. It's about the food we eat, it has the biggest impact on our health. So it can heal us, it can hurt us. So if you're in the treatment protocol, if you're eating the wrong foods in the wrong way, you're not going, your healing process will be very slow. So more and more practitioners, medical doctors, they're really opening up to understanding how food can heal so that they can guide their patients in very specific recommendations. Use this, don't use this, this is how you cook it. And they can really, truly help their patients that way.
That's great. That's great. Now, are you able to reach more students in your online course versus live?
Well, yes, our cap is 35 students.
Okay, well, that's awesome.
It used to be 12.
Yeah.
So I think we have to increase our limit for the spring session. Because
And are you getting students from around the world?
Yeah, from around the world. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Time difference.
Yeah, that's really yeah. I mean, that's a silver lining, I guess. In the pandemic, is that there's a you may have been heading in that direction, but it pushed you, accelerated it for you. And as a restaurateur, lessons learned. How long have you been running your restaurant?
4.5 years. It's like a baby. I count the months and the years.
Well, yeah, with a baby, babies, you stop counting the months after about 18 months.
Yeah.
And then you forget how old they are after that. But yeah, that's well, when does it become an adolescent?
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I think I'm much less involved with the restaurant now, and that's a very good sign because I'm working from home mostly.
Yeah.
Developing all the teaching materials.
That's great.
And also writing my book. I have a deadline and I really have to meet it.
Yeah. Do you have the same publisher? Because it's a beautiful book.
Yes, Rajasi.
Okay. Yeah. That's great. That's great. All right. Well, this was awesome. It was really wonderful to have the opportunity to meet you, Divya, and to spend the last hour just immersed in Ayurvedic cuisine. Healing cuisine.
I really enjoyed our conversation.
Absolutely. And I know people can find you in a number of different places: Instagram, Facebook, Divya Alter, Divya's Kitchen, New York City.
Yeah, Divya's Kitchen, NYC.
NYC, and then Bhagavat Life for the cooking school. I will include all of your social media handles in the show notes as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for our listeners, this Saturday, I'm teaching a 3-hour workshop on food compatibility. So we're going to go into great details about each category, practice, a little bit of, so that we can really see where the incompatibility is. And we'll also talk about how to how to kind of negate if you're eating incompatible foods, what to do to help yourself. So it
Oh,
will be
so kind of you're going to provide antidotes or remedies.
remedies, yeah, kind of, not 100%, but yes. So it will be a very practical workshop. I'll be also showing a couple of recipes. So if any of our listeners would like to join, you can.
What time do you know what time that workshop is happening?
Saturday, March 6th, from
Okay.
2 to 5 Eastern Standard
2
Time.
to 5. And Bhagavat Life they can find
Yes, so
on your website.
BVT Life is our website, bvtlife.com.
Okay.
T is in boy, V is in Victor, T is in Tom, life.com.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Divya.
Thank you. And again, we're offering a 15% discount to all of our listeners who would like to try. We have khichdi packets. These are like a one-pot meal. You just pour it in hot water and you have a hot, fresh meal in 20 minutes.
Yeah, I noticed that. Are you developing any, I know you have the khichdi and you have the cultured ghee. Are there any other products that are currently under development or you're considering?
Yes.
And you have your cranberry raisin sauce as well.
Yes. Which is just blended with hot water and strain it and it's ready. And it's good for a couple of days. That's a good leftover.
Yes. Oh, okay. That's a good one. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. Well, have a wonderful evening and thanks again.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take care.